tights. Who gives a shit? Fuck them. Wear them and don't worry about it. It's your fucking show.
Yeah,
who cares? Okay, are we ready?
Him to go in there, so I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but I do think an ass whooping early on might have straightened some things out.
Hello again, everybody. This is Chadillac. I'm your host for the Cage Rage podcast. Here with me today is guest host and fight analyst Miguel Iterati. Miguel, how's things?
Good, Chad. How you doing?
Good. You're looking good in black today, man. Things okay in Costa Rica?
Same as always, doing pretty good, and eager to talk a little bit about the big boys.
Good, because I'm sure that our guests are fascinated by everything in our personal lives because they're all so interesting. Hey, so we had kind of a big deal go on this weekend in the UFC. We had some heavyweight fights. Not a real interesting fight, and by all accounts, they really didn't pump it up that hard. It sort of felt like it was a throw together fight for DC to get a warm up in, maybe to make some money, and maybe it was I kind of got the feeling it was sort of a Derek Lewis had done us a bunch of favors, and let's give the guy a really good payday, and there's no shame in him losing to DC. No one believed he was going to win. And if he happened to win, there's a couple people got rich on bets. But the idea that happened was pretty slim. And I think what happened was, pretty spot on. I think we called it exactly as it would be. But I don't think that says anything great about anything that we've done. But I think in general, we've pretty much proven that if we say it, that's pretty much how it's going to go. And so if you're a betting man, you're definitely, or woman, you're definitely wise to come to the Cage Rage podcast and check out what we say before you throw your bets down. So Miguel, take me through the Lewis DC Cormier Daniel Cormier fight, and just tell me a little bit about it. Let's go ahead and talk about that first before we get to the bigger issue.
Well, as you pointed out, it kind of went pretty much the way we expected. I mean, at the end of the day, the UFC was at Madison Square Garden. They expected to have Weidman versus Rock holding the main event, near the top. When that fight fell apart, they had Weidman versus Jacare, but that doesn't carry, the weight of the other fight. And they were short a main event. So there comes the idea of Cormier and DC. It kind of fell into place well for everybody, and that the UFC needed it. The UFC hasn't really shown a penchant for, hey, let's just sneak another fight in there for the champs, let's get them another fight, another paydays. That's not their mode of thinking, especially post-Zuffa, I don't think. I think the bottom line is they needed some name recognition to headline the Garden, and DC provided that as the two-time champ and stuff. So he comes in, he makes the defense. They rode the Derek Lewis way for what they got out of it. I think it was a favor Lewis did to the UFC to take the fight, and everybody, you should say yes. At the end of the day, if the UFC were programmed to have the guys fight 3 times a year, and everybody were used to it, they'd be on a different cycle. But with a guy like DC, you're getting 2 fights a year. So anytime you get a chance to throw one in there or whatever, hats off to DC for doing it, because a lot of people might say, well, I got the big Lesnar fight coming up. I don't know about that. But they did it, and I think DC gave it the right amount of respect. He said, look, he's 9-1. He's got a big punch. I'm not disrespecting him. And I think he fought an efficient fight. I think that's what you saw, is that he got out of there with no damage. There's no worry that DC's going to be suspended or anything like that. And, he got through the challenge basically, damage-free. So I think that's important for DC. No real disrespect. I think now it would be interesting to have him come back and, notch another couple of wins. Now that he's tasted championship level, can he actually do what he said he was going to do, which is up his level and take a championship fight seriously and do all that stuff. They might be able to make a rematch out of it, so we'll see.
So here's what I noticed about that fight that kind of struck me. DC pulls his head back when haymakers come at him. That's kind of that's an auto reflex for wrestlers. You can almost never get it out of them. It's just a really hard thing to overcome. And he's not a striker. He can strike, but he's not a striker, and that's why John Jones beats him, because John Jones has that magnificent reach. He's got a bizarre style of striking. He comes from all directions, and I don't see DC ever being able to defeat John Jones. Clean, unclean. If DC's on steroids and John's not, I just think the outcome is the same no matter what. And I don't think that fight happens again, because I don't think they can afford to let DC get beat by him again. But we'll talk about that another time. But where that's relevant to me is this. I think part of the reason that DC wanted to take this fight was that Lesnar is a very big man, bigger than Lewis, but not that much bigger than Lewis. And I hadn't realized just how big Lewis was, because if you kind of look at the two guys, on television, they sort of look like the same kind of build. They look similar in height and weight and structure physically until they stand face to face, and you realize just how damn big Derek Lewis really is. Having said that, any decent purple belt rolls over that guy. Any purple belt that's 170 and knows how to wrestle beats that guy 20 out of 20 times in grappling class all day long, every day. DC did he pulled back from a haymaker, which was Lewis's only chance, and he knew that. And I'm not saying this is with any disrespect to Lewis. I like the guy a lot. I think he's cool. But he just has a long way to go, which DC even said. He's got a long way to go. He's going to learn, and he's going to get better. And I think this is the kind of thing that makes a guy like Lewis come back and become a really truly complete fighter in the end, for what that's worth. But DC dropped down. He took the ankle, ran the pipe, dropped him, and Lewis is kind of so clueless on his back that DC fell into triangle, where if he'd have done that with John Jones, he would have been triangled without a second thought. Jones would have snatched that so fast, he would have choked him unconscious instantly. And DC didn't have a care in the world about it. And when Lewis turned, he literally turned into leg drag. And so for people who are grappling artists, they know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And so for those MMA people that are with us on that, when we're talking about leg drags and stuff, and when you see that leg drag, you know that the leg drag escape on that is almost always escape the hips, which is hard to do, especially for a guy like Lewis who's so big. But it kind of made me wonder when I saw that if this wasn't all about a setup for Lesnar, and if all this wasn't really, look, let's do a live Lesnar test and see what happens see what happens if DC puts a big guy on his back. But I think they really missed the boat on that, because Lesnar doesn't hit the ground and lay down like that on his back. He's a high caliber wrestler. NCAA wrestler. I mean, that guy was the real deal. He's not just some massive steroid freak in the WWE that, he's a real high caliber wrestler before he ever became, a show guy. What do you think? What do you think, DC? Do you think I'm right about that? Do you think DC was using this as sort of a way to measure how he's gonna fit in with a bigger guy? And B, what do you think that looks like when he squares off with Lesnar now, and he tries to do that ankle pick and pull Lesnar's massive leg off the ground, who's got a wrestler stance and hips?
The bottom line is I don't think that the Derek Lewis fight, that DC gets too much from it that helps him in the Lesnar fight, or learn something that he didn't already know or anything like that. Yeah, he's in the octagon with a 260-pound man who's bigger than him. I think his wrestling experience and him being the size he is, he's probably wrestled big guys before. He's had a lot of guys like that. You know, at some point, if you wrestle as a heavyweight, you know, the sky's the limit. You wind up with 330, 340-pound guys. So I don't think the size is too daunting to DC. Especially in the Derek Lewis fight where, you know, he was going to have to, you know, the wrestling advantage the whole way.
Yeah.
I think at Lesnar, you know, a fresh Lesnar at the beginning presents you somebody who can avoid the ankle pick, you know,
Definitely.
who's going to have at least enough skill that you're going to have to set that fucker up, you know, one way or another, either with strikes or with leg kicks or with something. You know, you got a full gamut of ways to do it in MMA. It would almost be interesting to see if they kind of, you know, did the wrestler thing and, you know, went forehead to forehead, you know, bent over with their hand on the back of their head and actually tried to wrestle each other. If they spent a minute doing that, I might appreciate that, actually.
God,
you know, I don't
great.
want to see the whole fight of that, but I would like to see if they wanted to figure stuff out, especially when they were fresh in terms of wrestling. I'll go DC on that.
Really, you would take DC over Lesnar?
Yeah,
forehead to forehead.
I think you know, once you're an Olympic level wrestler, you've beaten a lot of guys Lesnar's level. And
Where does
wrestler.
DC? Where does he beat him on that?
I
Where do you
wrestle-
see that going?
In a wrestling match?
Yeah, I mean, if they're forehead to forehead, just ideologically, where do you see that? Where's your fantasy go?
He's gonna get under, and he's gonna get close. He's gonna be faster. So I think DC is gonna be able to get control of the fight and maybe wind up on top. If not, he'll be the one threatening most of the time.
I mean, do you think he
I
does a
don't
double
know.
leg?
You know, wrestling's very different, and we're talking MMA here.
Yeah.
So, but I still think, you know, at some point, if DC wants to move, even in a wrestling match, you know, he'll get it in minute 7. He'll get it you know, he'll get it late in the match, because, like, you know, same with boxing. I have a friend who his name is Daryl Pinckney. If you look him up on BoxRec, the guy's got 80 pro fights here. He's the first guy to drop Juan Manuel Marquez. He lost the fight on points in 12 rounds, but he dropped him in the 7th. And he dropped him with a low check hook because the guy was doing that. But you could see him, like, you could see Marquez was susceptible to that move by round 3. And I watched the fight with him, and he said, in round 3, he said, right there, I know I can land that punch. And he waited till round 7. Now, that's sophistication of boxing.
Absolutely.
That's the sophistication of wrestler versus wrestler, I think.
Yeah.
I think MMA is still heading towards that.
Yeah.
You know, the real setup of moves and the real setup of stuff. You know, DC Lesnar could present some of that. I think DC Jones has already presented us some of that. I think it makes it hard because Jones does seem to be hard for DC to beat. But, you know, it'd be nicer if they were 1-1 against each other, but it's not the case. But I think we've seen some of that in MMA, but we haven't seen it to the extent of more developed sports. So I think, you know, with Lewis, you had a disparity in their levels in wrestling and some of the other spots, so it wasn't going to show itself. Now, will it show itself with Lesnar when wrestling is more equal? It'll be interesting to see. I can tell you this, Lesnar on the WWE broadcast right now, he's popping up. He's still, you know, under contract, I guess. He's showing up on TV, and he's got to be 20 pounds lighter than he was during a set of TV appearances about 3 months ago or whatever, you know? So he's definitely training and looking, you know, different. And also, you know, the fact is under Veda, he's got to be off of steroids, and they've been testing. So, you know, with that being the case, he looks physically different. Now, on TV this last week, if you watch the stuff, he picked up a 350-pound man and dropped him on his head. You know,
what does he? What do you think Lesnar comes in at weight-wise? Not what he stands on the scales, but I mean, day of steps in the fight. What's his weight in the cage? Because he walks around at like 290, right?
You see, here's the thing: is I don't know that you know exactly what he weighs. You know, we haven't weighed him in the UFC in a long time. And then the bottom line is he's going to have to be 265, 266, 265 because it's a title fight, right?
Right.
So he's got to be 265 on the nose. Then from there, how much can he go up? I don't know if he's going to go up that much in this one. I don't know if he needs to. He's already going to have an ample size advantage, right? So if he can come back at 275, be light and fast, you know, that's what Lesnar has is even at 40 years old, he still has some bounce and move in his step. You know what I mean?
And what's DC's actual weigh-in right now?
I'm not sure, but I can't imagine DC weighing more than 230.
230. Can you look that up for me, Aaron? I'm gonna have Aaron look up DC's actual stats because I
what weigh-in for the last one, you know, for the fight there.
Yeah, so, look up Lesnar's and his. Pull that up for me, please.
I think the same thing is going to happen where now DC can face Lesnar, and DC can be the striker, you know, because at the end of the day, he's in the gym with Cain Velasquez and all those guys over there, and you know, Crazy Bob's team over at AKA. And
can he be the striker in round one?
Yeah, I think he comes out.
Yeah.
He comes out. I think Lesnar takes the first shot at a takedown, right? There's an interesting.
Yeah, because he doesn't like to be punched. You know,
he's going to come in and do the first shot at a takedown.
Lesnar, right? when Lesnar, I mean, if you square John Jones off with Lesnar, Jones stands outside and beats the shit out of him, and Lesnar doesn't like that fight, and Lesnar eventually tries to bull rush him, and Jones works angles on him, and I think he beats him up until he cuts him up into pieces, and he looks like he got beat up with paper cuts, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing about Lesnar. To me, Lesnar has a chance of being dominant in the wrestling aspect and stuff.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really hit hard enough to be a true ground and pound killer. You know what I mean?
Right.
He hasn't shown me that just destructive power that, you know, that puts fights away. So he's gonna. So all of a sudden he's more forced to fight. He doesn't have submissions either, right?
Right.
I
but
mean,
he's big.
I guess he can squeeze your head. You know,
he's Bob Sapp big. You know.
You know, the old time Mark Kurt, you know, chin in the eye and squeeze the head. That type of submission he could probably do, but you're not going to get sophisticated stuff out of him submission-wise. So he's kind of forced to fight an extended fight where he's wearing people out and staying active on top. So
yes,
to do that to DC for 5 rounds, that's a tall order to me.
Yeah, I don't see him. I don't see Lesnar being able to go 5 rounds with DC and control him because, look, Barnett couldn't control DC. DC ragdolled Barnett, which, man, I'm the biggest Barnett fan there is. I couldn't believe it. I remember I was on a plane with Josh, and I couldn't believe. Anyways, I couldn't believe that. But you know, and then when he ragdolled Hendo, I mean, that's the one that was the one for me. That was the stamp of approval that said, "Holy shit, DC is more than." He's Superman. I mean, there's something really, really special, and I get it now because I really didn't quite get it at first. You know, I just saw him as kind of a guy that was, yeah, he's a good wrestler, and he's slick, but he's got a lot of flaws, and there's a lot of problems here that I see people being able to overcome, and you know, there's a lot of jiu-jitsu guys that could tear this guy down, and that's really not happening. I don't see a lot of jiu-jitsu guys that can beat him up. So, anyways, let's wrap it up on the Lesnar and DC thing because it's pretty hard to say much more than that. So how about this? Give me a 2-minute summary of what you actually think is going to happen. DC and Lesnar. What's the Miguel pick on DC and Lesnar?
All right, the UFC's got Gustafsson and Jones program for December 29th. I think we'll get that. You know, barring some type of issue, what we had suspected was one path that could happen here is if DC won, that the Gustafsson fight might fall apart and you might get Jones and Lesnar on a fast track. So I think that scenario has gone by the wayside. I think Jones gets to sit here and watch DC and Lesnar. I think it becomes a very interesting thing is if DC wins, which I'm suspecting he will, then there's talk of him retiring, and maybe he will retire. He should make seven figures there, right? So maybe he should retire in that way. He kind of ices John Jones, and I think I gotta respect that. You know what I mean? Jones doesn't really deserve a break or anything like that. He's messed up. He's where he is now because of himself, right? And I think that DC right now, if he would plan to retire 2 fights afterwards, and the UFC calls him and says, "I got 2 fights left," and he says, "Okay, well, one was going to be against Derek Lewis, and the other one against Brock Lesnar," then John Jones isn't in the picture. I'm all right with that. Sure, a 3rd fight, and if DC were to break through, it would be, the big story in MMA in the last 5 years. You know what I mean? So, but it's not. I can see where DC's fed up with John Jones and his bullshit, and so I see DC going into the Lesnar fight. Jones beating Gustafsson, and then Jones, being the A guy after that. What happens there is, if DC does retire, you'd have 2 belts vacant, and then the world becomes very wide open. If John Jones wanted to, could you roll him in with, who's the number 2 contender in the UFC? Dos Santos, Cain Velasquez. Is somebody new, one of the Russian guys.
Nobody that beats Jones.
So yeah, so you can rush him in there, and then at lightweight the same thing. Anthony Smith, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Luke Rockhold, moving up. Who do you put him in there that could actually, you could still have John Jones win both titles in the next year. With DC gone out of the picture, and then he takes the mantle. But I don't think he needs it handed to him from DC. What becomes fascinating is if Lesnar pulls off the win on DC, does DC come back? Does he get a chance at a comeback? It's like at a rematch.
That's the more interesting fight.
Yeah. Or does it become Lesnar beating also the only other man to beat DC now gets Jones by the end of next year? That's a mega fight.
That's big. Yeah. So the bottom line for you then is that DC beats Lesnar in your final pick on this then, and then from there.
Well, we're gonna do another pick because the fight's is 6 months away or 4 months away. But in the initial, I'm predicting DC will be favored at the books.
Okay. Fair enough on that. We'll get back to that later. Okay. So let's talk about the other fight that you alluded to, which was the Jacare fight. There was some controversy about that. I don't necessarily think there was a lot of controversy about the referee and the stoppage and all that. And I'm pretty adamant about the idea of stopping fights early instead of late. I know a great deal about head trauma. I'm a published author regarding head trauma, and so I know a great deal about it, and I'm an expert on the subject as far as that goes. So when I say something about it, I'm not just kind of blabbing about it. I actually understand what happens in post-concussion syndrome and that kind of thing in a fighter. We're going to talk more about that in an upcoming episode, so we'll save that for then. But we will say this for now: the Souza fight, Jacare I don't know. I don't know if you saw it or not. I mean, I know you saw the fight, but I don't know if you saw it this way or not. But when I watched it, I felt like Jacare was losing that fight. He was flat-footed, and to me, he looked like really. There's a guy that I think should probably be thinking about hanging up his spurs. He seems like he's a little too old to be in the ring now. He's lost a step. He looked slow. He got his nose busted up by a guy that's younger than him, but by no means a real striker of any kind. Not that either of them really are. But I expected to see a really great grappling match, and instead we got a slugfest. I just kind of think that sucks. I miss the days when we had real ground and pound, and we had guys that actually went out there and fought, which is why I want to talk about the Holloway and Ortega fight. I know we're putting that on the shelf, but I can't wait to talk about that one because I'm so excited about that fight. Because there's a stand-up and ground and clinch, and that fight goes everywhere and gives us everything. But to stay on the Souza, the Souza fight, what are your thoughts on that? First of all, do you think that the stoppage was right? Do you think it was late? How do you feel about that as far as the controversy that's concerned?
The first thing I want to say is that, being a referee live in the ring is really the hardest job in MMA.
Most certainly.
This side of the fighters, you got to respect the two men doing it, right? But this side of the fighters, the guy in the ring responsible for them and their safety and the enforcement of the rules and everything, he's got the hardest job. The judges are morons who sit outside the ring. I'm a judge too. I wouldn't go in the ring just out of respect, because you don't want to make a mistake and you want to experience some good people in there, right?
Absolutely.
I think the UFC knows that. I think the UFC cares a lot about that. I think sometimes, they may not have, their self-interest may make them, not treat the referees 100% great, or they badmouth. There's been some controversy with them in reffing and stuff, but in general, I think the UFC does want good reffing, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, in that fight, to me, the referee is there, and Jacare sending a signal. It's like, man, you're gonna make me keep hitting this guy. I don't want to keep hitting this guy.
Right.
Now, to me, I think Jacare is doing, the Matt Hume Vulcan mind trick on the ref. Like, man, he's done. Isn't he done? He's done. You want me to keep? He's trying to coax the ref, but that's all part of high-level fighting. You know what I mean?
For sure.
That is all part of high-level fighting. So
Yeah.
he's trying, and he doesn't want to keep hitting the guy. I can tell you this, without a doubt, you put 50 grand on the table or lunch on the table, and you tell him keep hitting the guy, Jacare will keep hitting the guy. It's not that, but he's not at that point in his life anymore. And here they were in a competition. He broke through. He was having a hard fight. He's trying to play the refs a little bit, but the ref has a hard job. He's trying to interpret there whether the guy's like legitimately trying to, pull a fast one, or if he really feels like, man, did he feel he tagged the guy? Did he feel like something happened? You know what I mean? It reminds me of the time when I think it was Joe Theismann broke his leg in football.
Yeah.
I think it was against the Giants.
Awful.
And if you remember, Lawrence Taylor jumped up and was calling for the medics right away because he heard the leg.
Yeah.
He knew. So sometimes the athletes, you kind of got to respect that they know. So he's making a judgment call there. And, the UFC sometimes suffers for fast stops and stuff. So I think right now it's an interesting story, but I think we leave it at that. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
I don't think there's any fines. I don't think there's anything the ref really did wrong. But I think that's what Jacare put the ref in that position, because Jacare, as you pointed out, close to 40 years old, done this his entire life. He's about as savvy a fighter as you're going to find in terms of upper level, high level stuff. And there's no doubt in my mind that was part of the mind games that he was bringing in, especially after you point out maybe a fight he was losing. Then he gets through. It's like, get me out of here fast. I got nothing left. Who knows what he was reading?
Did you have Jacare losing that fight?
I thought it was a good fight. I thought it was even. I watched the fight. I've known Jacare since he was in his teens.
Right. Right. You introduced me to Jacare.
So that's the thing with the guy. It's like I can't help but root for him. Now I know Weidman also popped up at the Abu Dhabis, the ones that were held in Spain. That was the year after I left, right? So I wasn't part of that, and I didn't see Chris up front. But he came through the same program with grappling. I remember people telling me, "Man, who was that guy?" At the Spain Abu Dhabis, I believe it was. So
for our audience members who don't know, Miguel Iterati is also the not the founder, but certainly the human being who made the ADCC what it is today. Without Miguel, without Miguel pushing forward and moving the ADCC into the States and making it, running the initial ADCC website, filming it, taking pictures, moving forward with, I don't know if I can say his name or not, but the Sheikh. Is that okay to say Sheikh Tahoon? I don't know about that.
we had an opportunity to work on the early Abu Dhabi tournaments, the second one, the third one. So
for those that don't know, the ADCC is the Abu Dhabi Combat Club. That's what it stands for. And the Abu Dhabi Combat Club is a submission grappling tournament. It is, in my eyes, and I think in most people's eyes, still the largest and best submission tournament in the world. It's the first of its kind. It was a no-gi tournament in which people came and grappled from all over the world. There was, and back then, a $10,000 prize. Back when grappling, you used to pay to grapple. You had to be invited. You had to make it through a series of different events, and so we'll do an episode on that very soon, where we break out a lot of old stuff, because it's an amazing historic.
It's just really fast. I mean, nothing happens there without the sponsors and the people organizing the event. And they're real love for the sport, right? So
yes.
I don't want to take credit for anything that wasn't mine, but when I showed up there, it was something that I had experience doing shows, and they asked me to start organizing the weigh-ins, and we did that from the very beginning. It became being part of the judge team. I was head judge for a few of the Abu Dhabi tournaments, or were the judge organizers. I judged the Hoyler Gracie Eddie Bravo match, for example. So I mean, I was involved in the judging heavily, and I was part of the committee that chose the absolute tournaments. And a lot of people think, oh, it's the cheeks and everything like that. I mean, they really wanted to do everything by the book, and they knew that we did that at Hook and Shoot and some of the other places, so they let us help be a part of that in the early goings, right? So it was a good thing. Jacare, in his first Abu Dhabi, missed his plane coming from Brazil to Abu Dhabi, and he arrived on the day of the tournament 45 minutes beforehand, got off the plane, and still weighed in 184.
Man, so that's my first exposure to Jacare. Was when you introduced me to him and said, this is going to be the next. Just like when you introduced me to Marcelo Garcia and said, have you ever heard of a guy named Marcelo Garcia? And I said, no. And you said, he's that kid over there with the afro. And he was this little kid with this huge head of hair. And he went out there and just absolutely destroyed every top grappler in the world at an Abu Dhabi tryout, as if they weren't even there. And I don't even think he was a black belt then. And just was incredible. Anyways, back to the topic. Sorry, we veered off a little bit there. So, hey, let's wrap this one up. I don't think there's a lot left to talk about from the UFC 230 this weekend. If there's anything you want to cover, go ahead and cover it real quick. I don't have anything else to say about it. Jacare broke his nose. I think he's at the end of his career, and I think he needs to step down. He looked a little bit punch drunk to me, and I think he needs to be done. And I think Weidman needs to be done too.
Yeah, Weidman's had more injuries and stuff. I think you're talking about older athletes here, and I think you're right. Jacare, I think, is going to get a title fight next. Yeah, I hope he does. It'd be nice to see him, because he was one of the guys that got put on the shelf while the whole Anderson Silva got rematches and everything else. So he's always waited around. Didn't get breakthrough when he got the shot, so I'd like to see him get another shot, just because I know where the guy comes from, and the guy deserves it, and he's a very hard worker. So we'll see.
Yeah,
UFC 230 was fun, and Derek Lewis. Here's one of the things. It's like one of the things that came up with this whole thing is, and it's interesting, because if you look at CNN and big websites right now, there is a product being advertised called Ball Wash.
You're kidding me.
No, and they are a Derek Lewis sponsor. And
yes,
I'm gonna put my glasses on for this, because but what since we've talked conspiracy theories, right?
Hey, did you find the weight on DC and Derek Lewis?
Derek Lewis, you mean?
Can you find the stats on those?
DC's 226.
Right now,
DC is 226.
Last.
Okay, there you go, 230.
Thank you.
But check this out. Right now on Bleacher Report, it's called Ball Wash. Smell great, even late. With our winning trifecta of activated charcoal natural body wash, deodorizing ball and body spray, and solid cologne. Yeah.
And
Chad, I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
You know, it's been said more than a couple of times that I'm gifted in the jewels area.
But well, let me tell you this though. But what is interesting about the whole thing, now consider this under conspiracy theories, right? Now here's a company that's advertising on Bleacher Report something called Ball Wash. Aside from all that stuff, right? Aside from all that, there's money behind this thing in some way, shape, or form. They may run out of it or whatever if they're advertising on Bleacher Report. I don't know what that banner costs, but it's got to cost something, right?
Sure.
So was the taking off of the shorts and the My Balls Hot thing completely planned for the last UFC?
No.
Was it a complete?
No way. No way.
2 weeks later, you got Derek Lewis on Facebook and YouTube and stuff, with ball wash products.
Yeah, but you also believe in Roswell and little aliens and...
No, I don't believe in Roswell.
JFK.
I do believe George Bush killed Kennedy.
Yeah.
It's okay, Chad.
I don't know.
It's okay, Chad. The other interesting thing, but I think that opens up the possibility now, and I think that people should talk about this. But this ball wash company had Derek Lewis, if you win, do something, mention that your balls were hot or something, do something to call attention to yourself, and you got yourself a sponsorship. Like, I don't know, would you buy
Hey, I'm all for it. And goddamn, if all the guy has to do is say his balls were hot and it gets him paid, man, I'm all for it. Because
Absolutely.
I don't see Derek Lewis going out and doing a lot of different stuff where he's going to make, killer money. He doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. So
somebody sat in a room somewhere and they said, okay, for the ball wash product, are we going to go with a black bottle, a gray bottle, white? Okay, let's go with a black bottle and, white lettering, and it's just ball, they're actually marketing this shit. And they think, it's color. It's frightening that this is going on to me, and I smell conspiracy. So we can end it with that.
So do we get whole wash at some point?
Activated charcoal natural body wash, deodorizing ball and body spray. So you just
I'm going to repeat myself. When do we get the opposite of ball wash, so to speak? When do we get whole wash?
I think, the ladies have some products that have already been going on. You could just go with basic vinegar and water, right?
Which one of the female fighters is going to say, I took them off because my vagina was cooking.
I'll tell you this. That's so classy, it's got Ronda Rousey written all over it.
Hey, if she can do a movie with Stallone and stand in a ring with Roddy Piper, fuck, why not? I'm for anything. People got to get paid.
Rich. She's rich.
Hey, good podcast today, Miguel. Listen, we'll be back again real soon. Don't forget to subscribe below. Hit the little red button right down there. Special thanks to the sweetscience.com, theboxingchannel.com, International Brotherhood of Prize Fighters, betdsi.com. Don't forget to go to thecageragepodcast.com, Chadillac, thecageragepodcast.com, Miguel at thecageragepodcast.com. You can catch us on Facebook. I never tweet, but everybody tells me to, and I'm going to, I promise. Miguel, will you tweet something?
I've twatted, but
I am a twat. I don't tweet because I'm a twat. So tweet that. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm old, man. It's like if you got something to say, just come to our email, say it. We'll
How's my hair look?
Help with all that stuff, but hop aboard anyway. Let's wrap this one up, man. Namaste.
Namaste.
did it!